Next up is fork assembly. I think before I assemble these, I'm either going to sand these with 600, 800, and 1000, or just try to go to the buffer with them. I guess I'll try that first and get disappointed, and then I'll go sand them and then buff them. They look okay. They're just kind of a little foggy looking, and I would leave them, except for now the wheels are all shiny polished, so I think I need to shiny polish these to match the wheels. I went ahead and went right to the sanding. I didn't go buff first. I knew I would not be happy with the end product, so these are sanded with 600, 800, and 1000 grit. Now I'll go to the buffer. Actually, I think I'll assemble them first and then take them to the buffer. I have a new Yamaha bushing here. This is a knockoff part from Yam Bits. Put some fork oil on the wear surface. I have a fork tube, a new bushing here, a new Yamaha oil seal here. This guy goes in the end. The brazed fork cartridge. I'll drop in here. Can push the seal in a little bit by hand to get my fork seal driver to get that guy in all the way so I can get the snap ring in. See if I can get this screw started. Might be just spinning the internal. I put the spring in the fork so I could put a little bit of pressure on the screw down here. I'm able to get it started and drive it home, but it'll have to be tightened up more later. By the way, I measured these springs. These are the factory springs. The low end is 19 3/4. One of these measures exactly, well, actually a teeny bit over 20 inches, and the other one is about 19 7/8. So I'm going to try to reuse these springs. See how that works out. This is my fork seal driver. It's 1.5 inch Schedule 40 PVC with a male pipe thread adapter on this end. A little bit more. Looks good. I can get the snap ring in there now. That's in there. Here is fork tube number 2. I'm going to put the spring in the fork tube so I can put a little pressure on the damper where this screw needs to screw into. There we go. It started. Snap ring. Done. Tomorrow I will take these guys to the buffer. Have new dust seals. I get these emulators dropped down, nested into those cartridges. Get the springs in there. Put the caps on. Then I think I can actually start doing some assembly on this guy. I'm going to go out to the pool house and buff those fork lowers. We got rain coming for quite some time now. This is good for us in the Bay Area. This is after buffing and hand polishing with semi-chrome, and I think that's as good as I'm going to get them. They look pretty good. If you look close, you can see that they should have been sanded a little bit more. I was reading up on these emulators, The exact science on what exactly it does is a little above me, but I certainly needed to figure out how to make the adjustment on them. So this one is as received. This nut is tight. There's no play. So the way you adjust these, get an Allen wrench. This happens to be a 7mm nut. So I loosened this nut right here. And then this Allen screw will go in and out. Right now it's quite loose. The spring is flopping around. So I'm going to put it down until it stops flopping around, like so. And I think I'm going to start out with one turn, which would be about that. Maybe I'm going to go one. I'm going to start off at 1.5. Now tighten the lock nut. You can see there's a bunch of play here. That was 1.5 turns. Now I will do the same to this one. Yesterday I tried to fix this gap here by pressing this together, and unfortunately didn't think about it being the weakest spot on this emulator, these little legs right here, and squashed them in. I'm going to go generate a letter to Mike's XS and see if they'll replace this thing. Yeah, I screwed it up, but they sent me a bad unit with this gap right here. So we'll see how they respond. This is a comparison of the fork tubes. They're both fully extended. The one on the right has an emulator in it. The one on the left does not. There's about 15mm difference, which makes sense. The math works out. Now I need to assemble the one on the left. The manual says these forks require 8.55 fluid ounces, but we have an emulator in there, so this is going to take up a little teeny bit of that volume, isn't it? So I did the first fork leg, and I was putting the 8.55 fluid ounces in there, and I kept having to put more and more, but then I realized this guy was taken out. So this took up some of the volume in there. So it actually ended up taking about 9.25 ounces of fork oil. So I'm going to start off with 9 ounces in this one. 10 weight fork oil. 9 ounces is here. Now I'll drop this little guy in there. And then I can start measuring the height of the fork oil in the tube. These forks are supposed to have 120mm of oil measured from the top of the fork tube down into the fork. So this is my measuring device. I have it set at 140, so I need to take the level to 20mm here, and that will give me my 120. It's not even measuring after I put about a little less than 9 ounces in there. And here goes 1/4 ounce more. Now I'll measure again. Now I didn't write down what I put in the other one. I thought it was 9.25. This is close to 9.25. It's going to take a little more than that. Here goes another 1/4 ounce. I need 15 more millimeters of oil in there. Here goes 1/8 of an ounce. That brought it up another 5 millimeters. Here goes another 1/8 ounce. This brings us up to 9.5 ounces. Needs a teeny bit more. That's just about perfect. Can you see that? Now I can drop the fork spring in there, and it should measure about 20 millimeters from the top if the emulator is seated properly in there. It's sitting at about 21 millimeters. these fork springs were not equal. I think we're good. Now for the fork cap. How about that? Tighten these screws on both fork legs so I don't forget ever so slightly. And tighten the cap. That's it. 2 fork legs rebuilt with emulators and stock springs. I hope they work out all right.